When a person goes in for a routine maintenance of a vehicle, should the transmission fluid be replaced as often as the oil, or how does that work?
No, it shouldn't. Every manufacturer has their own recommendations. A rule of thumb is about 30,000 miles for automatic transmission fluid. Manual transmissions can go a little longer than that. But every owner's manual has a recommendation on when it needs to be changed. And at my shop, I've got a service where I can look up the maintenance requirements for any vehicle sold in the U.S. So if you have a question, you could call us. We can tell you when it needs to be changed.
Oh, really? Now, I've had two answers to that question. I go to one of these oil change places down the road, and they'll say, your manufacturer's recommendations are to change the transmission fluid, but we can't do it. You got to take it to the dealer. Well, in my case, the dealer moved out of town. They're not even there anymore. And then somebody else said, no, if it's a sealed transmission, you're never supposed to change it. It sounds like you are.
You are. There are some, I know Ford recommended on some transmissions to change at 100,000 miles. And when I was at Ford is when that decision was made. And I was part of a large group of the engineers that had argued against that. It was mainly marketing, because some of the magazines like Consumers Report grades the automakers on how much it costs for their scheduled maintenance. So they keep pushing the scheduled maintenance out to higher and higher mileages to get a better review.
Oh, that's terrible. It would make sense for me to bring my car to you and get the transmission fluid. I mean, can you look at it and see if it needs it?
You can look at it and see if it's bad, but it can also be bad and still look fine. So mileage is still the best way to do it, but if it starts discoloring, looks brown, or even worse, black, it's got to be changed.
I don't even know. I'm going to have to bring it to you. Mark Kovalsky is here, and you're on the air with him. Good morning.
Yeah, hi there. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
I have a question for you. I have an 04 Ranger, and I was just driving down the street one day, and my fuel gauge was probably 3/4 full, and it went all the way down to E, and my check engine light came on.
Oh. Yep, I've seen that before. There is a sender inside the gas tank that sends the computer information on how much fuel is in there. That sender that level is also used by the computer for a few different things. When that sender has a problem, like it gets an intermittent open circuit or a permanent open circuit, the computer can see that, and it sets a code, and it says, there's something wrong here. I know you couldn't have gone from 3/4 to 0 in 1 second. So something's wrong. It'll set a code to let the technician know what the computer saw, which works real well for an intermittent, because you've seen the light, now you may bring it in, the gauge may start working again, and the tech can go into the computer. The code will stay in the memory for about a month after the last time the light was on. He can pull the code out, run the diagnostics, and find the problem.
Oh, wow. And did the gauge start working again?
Yeah, it ended up working again like less than a day later, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you probably have a bad spot. It's a rheostat, and it probably has a bad spot right in the middle. When you get to that certain level, it goes to an open circuit and triggers the light in the code.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So does that sensor work in reverse? If a person's at a gas pump and they're starting to pump the gas, and all of a sudden you think you need 20 gallons and it clicks off at 5?
Well, the sensor can't make the pump click off.
Oh, okay.
All it can do is send a signal to the computer to tell the computer how much gas is in the tank.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Gosh, so many. See, I knew this was going to happen, Mark. This is just the way it is when we talk about cars, and you may be the first guest in a long time that knew anything to actually give an answer. Good morning. You're on the air with Mark Kovalsky.
Listen.
Yes.
I have a truck, and the water was blocking up. It seemed to get hot. So I took it out to the dealer, and he said he flushed it. Well, when he flushed it, it went back up into my heater and blocked the heater up. So I took it back to the dealer, and he said I needed a whole new radiator. Is that true? Because I understand the water goes from left to right and not up and down like the old-fashioned radiator. So how about explaining to him, and I'll hang up. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, most modern radiators now do flow from one side to the other, where the older ones used to go from top to bottom.
Oh.
And There's not a real big difference. It's mainly was done for packaging. Hood lines are lower, so they couldn't get the radiators as tall anymore as they used to be. And it really doesn't affect how it works. They work equally well going either way. And they can look down into the radiator. Sometimes you need a little tiny video camera you can drop in and look at it. But you do get deposits that can build up on the radiator, especially if you don't flush the coolant often enough. It can plug up the tubes, and then you got to replace the radiator. There's no way to fix them any longer.
You know, Mark,
Wow.
I think you're the first mechanic I ever met with clean hands. I mean,
Oh, that's because I'm really not a mechanic. I run the shop. I don't work on cars very often.
Oh, yeah, because your fingernails sparkle.
I'm telling you. Usually mechanics are covered with grease.
Well, part of that also is I spent almost the whole day in the pool yesterday.
Oh, okay.
We have so many questions. I got some of my own, too, but the calls keep coming in. Good morning. You're on the air with Mark Kovalsky.
Hi, he needs to have some little grease up front when right in the morning. Just dip it in so people believe he's
Right.
knows what he's talking about. Hey, I was wondering if on synthetic oil, if it says that 5,000 miles, but if I only put 3,500 miles a year on, because I don't go nowhere, do I need to change my oil more than once a year?
Yes, you really should.
Okay.
You can accumulate moisture in the oil just from the warming and the cooling and the humidity, and it can get moisture in it. Acids can build up if you do a lot of short trips, and that needs to get out. The other thing is, if you have it done professionally, like at my shop, we do a 51-point inspection whenever we do an oil change.
Like for
and
the
you
air
need,
and everything.
yeah, for air conditioning. We look at the transmission, the tires, the suspension, the brakes, the whole car. And you really need to get that done at least once a year, just so you can head off problems before they leave you on the side of the road.
Wow.
Wow, good
great.
stuff.
The other thing I was wondering is if by accident ever somebody put regular oil in instead of synthetic, what would that do to the car? Because I send my son off to do his, and we have synthetic in his. And I always say, make sure you tell him. And it's always been a little worry. What if,
The synthetics and conventional oils are compatible. You can mix them with no ill effects.
Oh, that's good to know.
Oh, you can. So
Oh, yeah.
by chance accident. Oh, thankfully, yeah. If you don't, my husband told me to ask you, if you don't have a dipstick for your transmission, how do they check the transmission?
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
That's a little bit harder,
Imagine.
but it can be done. You need a lift because you need to put the car up in the air and get underneath it. And there's a fill plug, and what you do is you put fluid in until it runs out the fill plug, and then it's full.
And so when we go in and have our oil changed, is that the standard that they do that for us?
On a sealed, those are what are called sealed transmissions. They're really not sealed. They just don't have a dipstick. We do check that. I don't know if every shop does, if it's standard.
Well, that's what I need then, because I'm worried about it now after hearing all this.
Maybe that's just part of like your 25, 50,000 mile.
The manufacturer does call at different mileage intervals for those type of transmissions to check the level.
Okay. Well, you have a great week holiday, or it's almost over, but a great 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call. And Mark, we can't wait for the next time you're here. I'm going to squeeze in one more, and then I want to make sure we give the information out for your garage. Is it possible for a person, and I'm talking about me, to actually have a problem with his car? Every single car has the same exact problem. And what it is, so it might be me. What it is, I'm convinced my speedometer doesn't work. I'm convinced, because no matter how fast, if I'm going the speed limit, I'm always like the slow guy on the road. Is it possible?
If you're driving at the speed limit, you are the slow guy on the road.
So my speedometer's fine. I mean, can you check my speedometer for me and see if it's
The
right?
easiest way to do it is with a GPS.
Really?
Yeah, you put a GPS in the car, and every one of them that I've seen has a mile-per-hour readout, and that's how I've checked them in my cars.
Because, you know, there's a sign near Trinity High School, and it lights up and tells you how fast you're going. Have you ever seen this sign?
Oh, I go by that one all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks like it's broken too, because it says 40 when I'm going 40, you know, and then I see everybody else just going by me. I said, well, they must have different speedometers, and I've had that problem since I was 17, by the way.
Now, the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Statutes, which are laws all the automakers have to meet, requires on a new car the speedometer has to be within 2% accuracy. So they got to be pretty close when the cars are new.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So they're all speeding then. They're all speeding. Can I get a sign, like one of those LED signs in the back of my car that says back off. I mean, I always wanted to have
I've
something.
seen those.
Yeah, I always want to have something where I could just type in something and communicate to the guy behind me. You're too close. You're cute. You know, anything.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
don't remember where, but I know I've seen those.
Mark Kovalsky, I knew this was going to be a hit show, so I can't wait for the next one. When are you coming back? Is this every other week?
Every other week.
You're doing it every other week. Okay. And how do we get a hold of you when you're not here? What's your phone number?
My phone number is 352-369-6052.
Okay. And you have a website too?
We do. It's www.alsfamilyautoandair.com, all spelled out.
And we need to remember that "and air" part.
Yes.
Because air conditioning needs, my son's air conditioning needs to be fixed. I got so many questions about my son's car. Well, we'll have to hold on to for 2 weeks. Before we started the show, Robin, I said to Mark, do you have a theme song you want to use? And he said, no, not really. Something maybe from the movie Cars. And I said, how about Life is a Highway?
Yes.
And it is probably the best theme song we've had in a long time. Here it is again to wrap up the show. Mark Kovalsky, good to have you on the air with us. Have a great 4th of July, and I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody, if you want to call Mark, call him at Al's Family Auto and Air, 369-6052. Hang in there. We'll be right back with our 4th of July special broadcast.
Life's like a road that you travel on. There's one day here and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside every darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore. Where the brave are free and lovers soar. Come ride with me to the distant shore.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.